She became a household name in the United States for more than 20 years, dominated the courtroom with her stern voice, and amassed an empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But beneath her legendary robes and biting humor was a lady battling on multiple fronts: a critical public, vicious networks, and family divisions. Why was her marriage on the verge of dissolving? Why was production halted due to what medical emergency? Her life at 82 years old is a far cry from the formidable persona she fashioned for herself. The ascent of Judge Judy is now being shown. When a no-nonsense, sharp-tongued prosecutor entered Manhattan's family court in 1972, everything changed. Even without raising her voice, her remarks cut through justifications, and her very presence demanded respect during an era when female prosecutors were unusual, particularly in the male-dominated, harsh New York City courts. New York Law School was the place where Judith Sheindlin got her JD in 1965. 7 years and 2 kids later, in 1972, she started her career as a prosecutor in the Manhattan Family Court. Because it dealt with actual people and their real-life effects, family law was her chosen field, not because it was a flashy or prestigious one. More important than any headline, in Judy's opinion, was the human factor. Her work was really hard. There were no high-profile white-collar crimes or corporate cases that she had to handle. She couldn't sleep since she was dealing with situations of neglect, problems with her parents, and children. Her courtroom was a disaster zone, full with sadness and serious mistakes. However, Judy was notable due to her lack of respect for authoritative figures, her indifference to legalese, and her inability to tolerate justifications. Justice, in her view, must be swift, transparent, and, above all else, equitable. She became well known for this strategy. Judy was nominated to the position of family court judge in New York in 1982 after making a strong impression. Judy was already shaking things up when the majority of judges were white males dressed conservatively. She remained the same forthright, no-nonsense woman who thought responsibility was the bedrock of justice, even while she wore her black robe. When she saw that a lawyer, social worker, or defendant wasn't doing their job correctly, she wasn't hesitant to call them out. Because of this, she became a figure of respect and terror in the city's courtrooms. Her good performance earned her the position to supervising judge in 1986. Her docket was more active than average. She demanded perfection from her employees, and her decisions were always upheld. To her, it didn't matter who had the best attorneys in family court. Instead of another postponement, it was about safeguarding children and providing low-income families with an honest response. Judy, however, was only one judge out of hundreds. Neither the news nor television featured her. It wasn't until a reporter from the Los Angeles Times noticed her distinctive approach to the courtroom in 1993 that she was profiled as a family court judge known for her severe demeanor and refusal to tolerate idiots. A camera crew from CBS quickly surrounded her after the piece piqued the interest of the 60 Minutes producers. After years of keeping it a secret, this section let millions of people see what the legal elite in New York City had known all along. Judy was fun as well as intelligent. The potential was immediately apparent to television executives. There have been court shows in the past, but they were either fictitious or excessively manufactured. Judy presented actual cases with actual litigants and a genuine judge who wasn't interested in frivolous matters. Judge Judy first aired in syndication in 1996, reaching daytime television viewers nationwide. The framework was straightforward. The cases involved minor claims and disagreements, and the judge had a keen tongue but never lost his point. Still, nobody could tear their eyes away. Judge Judy quickly rose to the position of most-watched courtroom program on television. However, the most crucial aspect is that it altered the demographics and production processes of court shows. Instead of filtering her speech through a legal framework, Judy addressed the audience directly, using everyday language and common logic. She was not hesitant to point out careless parenting, careless choices, or blatant deceit. "Do not pee on my leg, inform me that it is pouring, and everything that does not make sense is not true" are some of her catchphrases that have entered popular culture. As always, her method was swift, unambiguous, and conclusive. On daytime television, Judge Judy was unrivaled for 25 consecutive years. It became a phenomenon rather than merely a hit. It won 3 daytime Emmys and daily audiences numbered in the millions. 6 years ago, deservingly received a star bearing the Hollywood's emblem. Judy continued to film in the same basic courtroom set, using the same format, and producing the same results even as her income continued to rise, eventually reaching a record-breaking $47 million each year. Even away from the camera, her achievements influenced new portrayals of women in law, particularly on television. She had no supporting role whatsoever. The TV landscape shifted, and newer, flashier shows came and went, but she remained in charge. She had presided over 12,500 cases by the time the last episode aired in 2021. Her status had transformed from that of a mere celebrity judge to that of a symbol. Her personal life was falling apart at the same dizzying rate as her accomplishments in court, but nobody seemed to notice. Her love life and marriage troubles. Although Judy Shinlin was establishing a stellar reputation in the legal field, her personal life was more complex and out of her hands. Juggling ambition and expectation was Judy's struggle before the television offers and multi-million-dollar contracts. She wed fellow lawyer Ronald Levy in 1964, and he appeared, on the outside, to share her ambition. Together, they constructed what most would consider a typical life, and they had 2 children. There was a widening gulf, though, behind that routine. Instead of pursuing a career as an attorney, Ronald hoped Judy would settle into a more conventional role as a homemaker. However, she would never be receptive to that. The guys in the courtroom thought she was the assistant, and she had fought for her position for too long. She was unwilling to give that up in order to appease another person's vanity. The gap between them gradually grew, yet she persisted in advancing her legal profession. Even though there weren't any major public fights or scandals that made headlines, the marriage had already crumbled by 1976. The reason it ended was very plain to Judy. She refused to shrink in order to keep the marriage together, and he didn't encourage her to expand. Shortly thereafter, she crossed paths with Jerry Shindlin, an author and judge who shared her fiery nature and keen intellect. Their romance was brief but passionate, and in 1977 they were married. It appeared to be an ideal combination on paper. They knew what it was like to be under professional pressure, had strong opinions, and had experience in court. What happened next, though, was unavoidable regardless of how compatible they were. After Judy's hero, Murray Bloom, passed away in 1990, she started to deal with his death emotionally. In terms of emotions, his passing was devastating. Judy, who had always taken great satisfaction in her lucidity and resilience, was now swept up in a tempest of sadness that she could not endure. Just as she had carried others for years, she needed someone to momentarily carry her and provide comfort. She was left feeling all alone because Jerry, being his usual forthright self, failed to fulfill that duty to her satisfaction. She said to me, "If you can't maneuver this, I'm going to divorce you." And I said, "Oh yeah, I dare you." And the next day I got divorce papers, Jerry recalled in an interview, describing the moment that destroyed everything. And with that, we concluded the matter. It caught everyone unawares. They were sharp as nails, but they had always appeared tailor-made for one another. However, Judy had little interest in vague feelings. She was quick to act when things weren't working. She felt the marriage had petered out at that very moment. Once the dust settles, though, life has a knack for making room for clarity. Something happened in the months after they broke up. Anything out of the ordinary occurred. It wasn't boredom or isolation that made them long for one another. Rather, it was the realization that their fundamental bond had remained unchanged. After the fact, Judy stated, "I like being married. I missed him." Jerry, in his own manner, acknowledged that no one had ever been able to compare to her. We hadn't seen each other in years, and he confessed, "I missed her presence the very first week that we were separated." Judy's marriages mirrored her courtroom presence. She didn't tolerate disrespect. They quietly reconciled and remarried by 1991, just 1 year after their divorce. Since then, they've remained married, often poking fun at each other in interviews, but never downplaying the years of effort it took to stay together. Judy and Jerry had learned the hard way that love isn't about verdicts, but about choosing to keep showing up even after the structure breaks. She expected accountability and always made decisions with a clear mind, but no matter how well-mended a marriage is, time waits for no one. In 2011, something happened on the set of Judge Judy that abruptly halted production for a woman known for her lightning-fast delivery and razor-sharp focus. The change was immediate and terrifying. While taping a case, Judy's speech slowed down as if she had been switched to slow motion. Her voice sounded different. Their bond would soon be tested in a very different way, unrelated to arguments or ultimatums. The health scare that changed everything. Her usual energy had suddenly evaporated, and she appeared listless and disoriented. The rest of the studio could sense that something was seriously wrong, so the producers wasted no time in halting filming and dialing 911. An ambulance swiftly transported her to the hospital, where doctors confirmed her diagnosis of a transient ischemic attack, also known as a mini-stroke. The symptoms of this condition often go away within minutes, but the warning signs are still there. The message conveyed is grave and life-threatening. A temporary ischemic attack does not simply go away. It portends the onset of a more serious condition if measures are not taken. Judy was fortunate to have had a partial recovery, but she was also aware that luck alone was not a strategy. After a period of hospital observation, her speech returned to normal, and fortunately, she did not require rehabilitation, and her recovery was not protracted. However, there was a lengthy recovery period. This experience left a lasting impression on Judy. She went on to talk about how it taught her a valuable lesson, that no matter how strong your body is, there are limits, and hers had just sent her a warning. After that, Judy made some changes to her lifestyle, including starting an exercise routine that prioritized heart health and maintaining a healthy balance in her life. Miss Judy didn't miss a moment at work. Taping resumed and Judge Judy continued its run without any public disruption. Most fans were unaware of the episode even existed. That was precisely because she cleaned up her diet, focusing more on fresh, unprocessed foods and stayed active outside of the courtroom. Most importantly, she began taking Plavix, a medication that helps prevent blood clots and reduces the risk of future strokes. She wanted it her way, private, controlled, and behind her. However, those closest to her noticed a subtle shift. She was more disciplined about her time and her schedule, and she made sure to leave room to rest. This was a huge change for someone whose career was built on being the fastest. Despite the health scare and her preparedness, it would soon become apparent that not all storms originate internally. Some are caused by other people. This is the controversial side of Judge Judy, the part of the show that has been around for over 25 years, when it dominated daytime television, had virtually no competition, and made Judy Shinlin one of the highest-paid TV hosts. However, after 25 years at the top, CBS decided to cancel the show in 2021. The end came as a shock to Judy, who saw it as anything but a natural conclusion to a long-running show. The problem started when CBS made a business decision that Judy felt crossed a personal line. Instead of airing new episodes of Judge Judy, CBS paid an astounding $99 million for the rights to air reruns. This effectively ended production, even though Judy was prepared to continue. Meanwhile, Judy felt betrayed when CBS quietly shelved Hot Bench, a courtroom show she had co-created and produced that used a panel format with 3 judges. This was more than just a programming change, it was a signal that CBS no longer valued her work. "You disrespected my creation, and you were wrong," Judy said in an interview. "Not to mention the fact that you're taking a chance on what? You repositioned it." Judy's career had been defined by her ability to make decisions, set standards, and call the shots. When her show was canceled and replaced with reruns and Hot Bench was downsized, it felt like more than just a business decision. It felt like an effort to erase her influence from the network she had helped elevate. And although CBS never presented it as a conflict, Judy made it seem that way. It was evident that she was not going to remain silent. She divorced the network, started a new show called Judy Justice on Amazon's Freevee platform, and continued doing what she did best. However, as she settled into her next act, more troubling headlines started to surface, and this time they weren't related to network politics. Rather, they originated from within those closest to her. It all started with rumblings from former staffers who started speaking to media outlets about what they called a toxic work environment. Work environment behind the scenes of Judge Judy. However, the rumors persisted and became increasingly difficult to ignore. Randy Duth, who had been Judge Judy's executive producer for many years, was at the center of the controversy. Ex-employees claimed that Duth had fostered an unsafe workplace characterized by harassment, bullying, and other forms of unfair treatment. Courtney Bulick, a producer, brought the most serious accusations when she sued Duth, claiming that Duth had color. These weren't just unsettling stories, they were explosive, particularly considering the show's long-standing reputation for presenting straightforward justice. Less publicized but no less damaging were the allegations that senior staff, including Duffett, had been known to imbibe on set or insult younger employees. Several ex-crew members characterized the work environment as one where extreme caution was expected. The accusations presented a different picture than the tightly controlled courtroom that viewers saw on screen, and the question that arose was, how much did Judy know? In interviews, Judy denied any wrongdoing, defended the integrity of her team, explained that she trusted the loyal professionals she had assembled and that she had surrounded herself with, and continued her public support for Duth, praising him as a brilliant producer and an important component of the show's success. However, not everyone was satisfied with that. Critics felt that Judy's silence on the more systemic issues, particularly those pertaining to race and gender, was contradictory for someone who had built a career on accountability. They also noted that as the show's public face, Judy was responsible not only for the decisions made on air but also for the atmosphere behind the scenes. Judy herself faced no legal repercussions, was never named in the lawsuits, but the reputational damage was real. For some fans, it was the first time they questioned the fairness of the judge they had trusted for decades. For others, it raised broader questions about how power operates quietly in television and who gets protected when complaints are made. Nevertheless, Judy didn't give in to the criticism. She continued filming Judy Justice and rarely commented publicly on the allegations again. However, the stories remained online. Judgment over Judy Schindlin's handling of certain cases had begun to grow louder even before the final seasons of Judge Judy. What was once perceived as refreshing bluntness began to sound like bullying to some. One case in particular became a turning point in how audiences and critics started to view her courtroom demeanor. These instances lingered in court records and in the memories of those who had worked on the show. Despite Judy's best efforts to move forward, the shadows of her past controversies remained stubbornly cast. After the show aired, new information came to light that directly contradicted the decision. The man accused in the case later presented medical evidence showing he didn't have herpes at all. The ruling, while final on the show, looked careless in hindsight. The backlash was immediate. Judy awarded $5,000 to a woman who claimed her ex-boyfriend had knowingly given her a disease. The case became known online as the herpes case. Although the payout was small by legal standards, the reputational damage for the man involved was far more serious. Viewers were uncomfortable with the question of how many other rulings had been made that way. For a courtroom show that prided itself on facts and finality, the mistake felt glaring. Critics argued that Judy had made a snap judgment without sufficient evidence and had publicly shamed someone based on nothing more than testimony and emotion. However, the criticism failed to alter the outcome. Judy was famous for interrupting people mid-sentence, scolding them for veering off topic or making fun of what she perceived as bad life choices. What made her beloved by some became unbearable by others. Over the years, some viewers noticed a pattern. Litigants who had trouble expressing themselves, whether due to broken English, lack of formal education, or unfamiliarity with legal jargon, were frequently met with impatience and sarcasm. For a long time, Judy's stated mission was to teach people personal responsibility, and that message resounded. However, as the show progressed, viewers began to perceive what they perceived as a classist undercurrent in her courtroom tone, with impoverished defendants, particularly those who arrived in a shambles, being unfairly characterized as irresponsible or lazy. The reports went on to say that litigants without lawyers or who struggled with complex paperwork sometimes ended up losing their cases and being publicly shamed. The world has changed and more people are talking about poverty, mental health, and systemic inequality. People who are more politically conscious found her blunt style outdated. Critics said she was no longer only tough on bad behavior, but also tone-deaf to the real-world challenges that many litigants faced. The controversies didn't end there. Her streaming comeback, Judy Justice, was launched with fanfare, but one casting controversy surrounded it. The decision that Judy made to have her granddaughter, Sarah Rose, serve as the show's clerk caused quite a stir online. Many fans accused Judy of open nepotism, and viewers questioned whether Sarah had the charisma and experience to handle the role. Judy herself had gone to law school and greatly admired Sarah, so the move was seen as a natural continuation of the courtroom legacy. Visible role. Some critics noted that, although Judy had a history of guiding strong female characters in TV courtrooms, this time it seemed more like a personal favor than a career move. The criticism became more severe when episodes began to air. While Sarah was pleasant and articulate, she lacked the charisma of Petrie Hawkins Bird, Judy's longtime bailiff, who had been with her since the 1996 debut. Viewers noticed Bird's absence and were disappointed that he wasn't invited to join the new show. For Judy, these incidents didn't derail her, but they did chip away at the untouchable image she had built up for decades. She remained focused on production and continued taping new episodes, but outside the set, the conversation had changed, and he later revealed publicly that he had never even been asked to audition. This move added fuel to the accusations that Judy Justice was more about personal loyalty than professional merit. It seemed like Judy Sheindlin had vanished for a while, no more daily broadcasts or viral courtroom clips, but she hadn't. Judy merely changed directions, and now people were questioning whether the ideals her courtroom promoted were still applicable in today's cultural milieu. The 80-year-old Judge Judy is still going strong, producing and working, and determined to shape the public's understanding of justice, even though fewer people are paying attention to her. Where is Judge Judy now? Despite not appearing on television every afternoon like clockwork, Judy Sheindlin has not quietly retired. She still makes appearances at public events, often appearing more put together and sharp than people half her age. Not long ago, she was seen at a high-profile luncheon where Samuel L. Jackson. Critics praised her immaculately coiffed locks, distinctive tailored attire, and undeniable charisma. Judy appears physically fit. Her voice may sound a little older than before, but the vitality in her eyes remains unaltered. Judy isn't attempting to appear younger. She is merely asserting that her years have never dictated her speed. She reportedly spends her free time at a 17,000-square-foot estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, which she has owned for years and uses as a more private family retreat, as well as at a large mansion in Newport, Rhode Island, which she owns in part because of its breathtaking gardens, ocean views, and the kind of seclusion that few public figures can afford. The main residence of the couple is a massive estate that she owns for about $9 million. As a sign of changing priorities, Judy recently sold her New York City penthouse, a sleek high-rise home that once gave her direct access to the center of Manhattan. The property is classic East Coast luxury, understated on the outside, opulent on the inside, and surrounded by the kind of manicured grounds that practically whisper old money. Judd has 5 children. 2 biological and 3 stepchildren from Jerry's side, and is now a grandmother 13 times over. Those close to her describe her as fiercely loyal to her family, particularly her grandchildren. Judy has transitioned into a new kind of television professionally, and her empire is no longer dependent on studio schedules. The fast-paced life in New York may not be as appealing as it once was. Justice on Trial, Judy's newest show, premiered on Prime Video in 2025. Unlike her previous work, which was focused on courtroom arbitration, this true crime documentary series takes a look back at past legal cases and re-examines them through a modern lens. It recreates trials that captivated or confused the public, including notorious cases like the Scopes monkey trial and the Menendez brothers. The format combines actual trial transcripts with dramatized scenes, making it more narrative-driven than anything Judy has done before. She doesn't act as a real-life judge issuing rulings, but rather as a real-life prosecutor offering her insights. The show is scripted and analytical, but it has a serious message. Judy doesn't lecture viewers or deliver final verdicts. Instead, she takes part in reenacted scenes as a lower court judge, and her tribunal justice team serve as the appeals panel. The show challenges the idea that the justice system always works as it should and asks viewers to consider whether the law has always been applied fairly or whether sometimes the wrong people pay the price. Justice is not always black and white. There's a purpose to the project beyond ratings. Judy says she hopes the show leaves viewers a little smarter, a little skeptical, and a lot more aware that even judges are human. The dramatized courtroom scenes reflect different eras, complete with changing hairstyles, robes, and even the original robe she wore during her early years on television. Though the trademark lace collar has been removed, these visual shifts help transport the audience into each time period while still centering the message. The admission is significant for someone who spent decades being the final authority on television, but it hasn't brought the same level of media attention to her new phase of career. Justice on Trial airs on Prime Video, which targets niche audiences rather than daytime TV's broad demographic, and Judy Justice airs on Amazon Freevee, but neither of these shows has really caught the attention of most viewers who aren't actively seeking them out. Billboards and viral promo clips no longer flood people's feeds. Judy's influence in popular culture has diminished, not because she has faded, but because she is now operating in a different media landscape, and she appears to be content with that. Her day-to-day life is less hectic, but far from idle. She is not interested in golf or other hobbies that keep her still, but rather thrives on structure and productivity. And although she doesn't, she still reviews scripts, notes, and edits 5 days a week, but her reach has changed. When she was at the top of her game, her shows reached tens of millions of people every week. Now, her shows reach a few million people, sometimes even less on streaming platforms. Her fan base has shrunk, and younger audiences rarely recognize her name unless they've heard of her from an older generation. Even though Judy Shinlin may never again be a mainstay of daytime TV or regain the level of prominence she once had, she is still free to choose her actions, the way she does them, and the people she shares them with. Would you be interested in seeing Judy return to television? Leave your thoughts in the comments section. She is cognizant of the generational divide and the fact that time marches on regardless of one's position of power. If you like this video and would want to see more like it, please subscribe to our channel and click the next video button.